We are joined right now by the great Ray Fittipaldo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, our Steelers insider. Fan Morning Show brought to you by Guardian Protection, your hometown home and business security company. Before we get down to brass tacks here, Ray, and get into the Steelers and their injuries, what's your favorite Christmas cookie?
Christmas cookie. Got to be a Pizzelle. It's probably got to be the anise-flavored Pizzelles. Old school, I know, but yeah, that's me.
Are you a big cup of coffee guy with the Pizzelle?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you do the traditional seven fishes too, Ray?
I asked that.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Fittipaldo sounds Italian,
right?
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. That was more my parents' generation. But yeah, I mean, we still have 3 or 4, but not the full course like we did back in the day.
Do you do the smelts? You ever had the smelts?
Yes, I think my wife likes smelt.
Oh my God!
My wife actually likes sardines.
So do I.
Or not.
Yeah, anchovies, sardines, smelts. I like them all.
Yeah.
My wife's grandparents they came over from Italy, right? And every year around this time, they'll make those fried dough balls with anchovies in the middle. And I've only recently been able to, a couple years ago, I started to tolerate them. And then this year, for whatever reason, I liked it. Mm-hmm. Taste buds are changing.
Yeah.
It's just salty fish. It's not bad.
No.
But the smelts, no, those are nasty. You eat all the bones in your mouth. They're gross, Ray. Tell your wife I said that. Anyhow, football? Let's do the football. So T.J. Watt, George Pickens, Dante Jackson, Deshaun Elliott, Justin Fields, all listed as not having practice yesterday. Now, it was a walkthrough of sorts. It's really a hypothetical injury report. Any of those guys that you expect to play on Sunday, Ray?
You know, I think Dante Jackson might be okay to play. I think, Ogunjobi was limited yesterday. I think he's got a shot. We're in such a unique situation with the 3 games in 11 days. I don't think we're going to be able to read a lot into practice today either. I think the big day is probably Thursday. I will say this. I saw TJ walking around the locker room fine yesterday. There was no limp or anything like that. So I'm not even closing the door on TJ. But I think, probably Ogunjobi and Dante Jackson have the best shot among those guys.
Pickens? I mean, we saw him doing the ladders drill. I don't know how much you can really take from that. I mean, it's promising, but would you play him in this game if it was close?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Doran, there's a lot. You got to open it up and sprint if you're George Pickens, and that's a whole lot different from, doing ladders off to the side with the trainer. So I would still say he's somewhat of a long shot. I read something this morning that, even if the Steelers lose to the Ravens, guys, they still control their own fate in the AFC North. All they would have to do is win their final 2 games against the Chiefs and the Bengals. So there is a little bit of leeway there. If you're unsure about a guy like Pickens or a guy like TJ Watt and you want to just hold off and rest them, you could do that and still win the division if you win your last 2 games.
Ray, sometimes we do our homework on the air, and we discovered in the middle of the first segment that Lamar Jackson has never played the Steelers twice in a year as their starting quarterback. How do you think that might change things? Because I think it does. I mean, he usually loses to the Steelers, then doesn't play the second game, and then stews on it, thinks about it for a year. But now there's the quick turnaround.
Yeah, I mean, listen, how much he's a great player. He's going to go down as one of the Ravens' best quarterbacks, probably their best quarterback in their history. I mean, this dominance that the Steelers have enjoyed isn't going to last forever. So, I mean, they clearly, have a way of defending him. They like to keep him hemmed in the pocket. If I'm Lamar, I'm taking my own advice, and I'm doing what didn't his mom say, you got to start running?
Yep.
If I was Lamar, I would start running against the Steelers, because when you run against the Steelers, we saw that with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, especially if Deshaun Elliott isn't in the middle of that defense. Boy, that was atrocious tackling, probably the worst tackling I've seen from the Steelers in quite a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it wasn't just the safeties. KZ struggled. Dante Jackson struggled when he was in there. Joey struggled. Patrick Queen struggled. So if I was the OC down there and I was Lamar, I would run against these guys and I would make them get me on the ground.
Ray, has your thoughts and opinions changed of this team based off of Sunday's game against the Eagles?
It tells me that George Pickens is really important. I don't know if I want to go really beyond that. I mean, yeah, the defense struggled. The one area where I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about the defense is the secondary. We just touched on the tackling, but they weren't really tight on A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith in that game. And I'm just wondering, is that unit really dependent on the pass rush? And if the pass rush doesn't get home, are they going to continue to be exposed? So, it's a top 5 defense. It's still a really good unit, but and it might not come into play this week, guys, because the Ravens, their weapons aren't the same as the Eagles' weapons. I get that, but I'm saying down the line, I'm starting to get a little bit concerned about, the secondary and specifically the corners and their ability to cover.
Ray Fittipaldo of the Post-Gazette joining us here on the Fan Morning Show, does every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Let's say they don't have Pickens. What's your game plan? What are you trying to do to the Ravens? Because running the ball in the stacked boxes against Philly didn't work, and the Ravens, as we know, have a good rush defense.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'm doing is what Arthur Smith did against the Bengals. I'm breaking my tendencies again, guys. I'm throwing on first down. I'm trying to get guys like Jaylen Warren in open space, short little passes. I'd reintroduce Darnell Washington, get him out in space, let him fall forward for 4 or 5 yards. Just do simple things. They were in far too many second and third and longs, and that's not the way the Steelers win. So I would, I would throw a lot early. I would still lean on my running game. And it just seems to me at this point in the season, guys, that I know they're probably not going to start Jaylen Warren, but I think Jaylen Warren needs to start seeing the bulk of the carries and the bulk of the snaps here. It just seems like maybe Najee's lost a step or two, maybe just because of wear and tear. And I think it's time for Jaylen maybe to step up and take over as RB1.
Ray, you can only pick one to join the Pittsburgh Steelers: Odell Beckham Jr. or Deontay Johnson.
And you have to pick one.
Let's go Odell, because Odell didn't do the stuff that Deontay did when he was here. I mean, I just don't know how that would go over within that locker room. And I'll say this about Odell, before the injuries, like the Steelers loved him coming out of LSU. I mean, he was one of their top favorite players in that draft when he came out. Yeah, he's been injured now. He's obviously older, and there's some baggage with him too. But if I had to pick between the two, I'd go with Beckham. Another
either-or question here, Ray. If you could only have one guy play in this football game, Pickens or Watt, who would you choose?
I would go with Pickens. And I know their record with Watt. I just don't know if this offense can score more than 13 or 17 points against the Ravens without George Pickens. And I know they won 18-16. I know they have this mastery over the Ravens, but George Pickens is so important to that offense. I mean, that's what people were worried about before the season started. What happens if he gets injured? Well, we're finding out now, and it's not very pretty when he's not in there.
Ray, this was wonderful. Enjoy your pizzelles and your coffee. And tell your wife that smelts are gross.
I will tell her. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy. Ray Fittipaldo of the Post-Gazette.